What does Purdue need to do to find success this year?
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Nick Arvin. We're talking Boilermakers once again this week. I write about Purdue for 24/7 Sports, and today's episode is brought to you guys by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We got a jam-packed football episode heading your way today, including what are the three keys to success for Barry Odom's boys in his first year as the head coach of the Purdue Boilermakers. We'll have Roen Elbert on the show later in our second segment. He talks Ball State Cardinals, analyst over there at Ball State. So he has some great insight. Stick around for that interview. And then that last segment, what is the NCAA doing? We're talking about playoff expansion. We're talking about Michigan getting a slap on the wrist. It's unacceptable, and we're going to talk about it today. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into what Purdue can do. What are the three key things for Purdue to find success this year? We talk about success, and that's kind of a subjective word because last year Purdue goes 1-11. So improving on that, is that success? Getting to a bowl game, is that success? Getting back to playing competitive football, that's what I claim to be success. You can kind of throw everything else out the window as long as you put a product on the field that is competitive. You want to watch these football games because you have faith that it's going to be a good product on the field, that the Boilermakers are going to stay in these games and make the games fun to watch. I'm not expecting a Big Ten championship in the first year of Barry Odom's tenure at Purdue, but I want to see this team get back to functionality. I want to see this team get back to playing competitive football, having games that people want to watch. And the first key to that, out of the first three keys, is resilience. We didn't see a resilient football team last year. We saw a team that after losses didn't turn it around, didn't continue to play hard. They kind of let go towards the end of the year. There were some highlights in that year. There were some fun games, whether that be the Illinois game where Ryan Brown really balls out, but we didn't see any wins. We saw a win in the first game of the year and then 11 straight losses. There's no resilience there. You're going to lose games this year if you're Purdue. You're not a top Big Ten team. You're not a Penn State. You're not an Ohio State. You're not a Michigan. As much as I love Purdue, that's just how it is. You're going to lose games. The Big Ten is so difficult, and you have a tough schedule if you're Purdue. But you need to learn how to bounce back after losses. You need to learn how to keep your head up, keep going hard in practice, and improve going into next Saturday, going into next week so that you can win games, so that you don't lose these games back to back. It's not about losing games. Purdue is going to lose to an Ohio State. Purdue is going to lose to a Michigan, and that's just how it is. But if you can bounce back and you can compete with a Washington following Ohio State, if you can bounce back after Notre Dame and compete at home against an Illinois team, that's what we want to see. We want to see that resilience. We want to see a team that is built on a philosophy of wanting to compete week by week, practice by practice, day by day. That's something we didn't see under Ryan Walters. That's something that needs to be seen under Barry Odom. Step two of keys to success for Purdue this year: run the dang ball. We'll talk about that tomorrow with SIU, that identity that they're trying to build. But at Purdue, that identity needs to be built themselves, and that's something that Barry Odom has addressed early and often: running the dang ball. You bring in a guy, several guys actually from UNLV where Barry Odom was at, whether that's a Mason Vicari, whether that's a Hank Purvis, or a Jalen St. John, three big physical linemen that really succeeded at UNLV. You bring those guys over to Purdue to try to build up a better offensive line. Last year, 14 different guys plugged in at that offensive line spot, and that's unacceptable. If you're going to run the ball, if you want success with your senior running back, Devin Mockabee, who's in reach of the all-time rushing record at Purdue, you need to build up your trenches. And so far, we've seen that. Going into Saturday night scrimmage, there were some position battles at the offensive line spot. Those are getting worked out right now. We should have a depth chart out soon to see where we're going to be. But when you look at some of the teams on Purdue's schedule this year, in the past, they've had trouble stopping the ball. We'll talk to another guy, USC's own Mark Colkin, on Wednesday about USC, that week 3 matchup, how they have added to that run stopping front seven. But when you look at some of the teams on Purdue's schedule, whether that be a Rutgers, a Washington, a Northwestern, those are teams, and a USC last year, despite what they've done in the transfer portal, those were teams that struggled stopping the run last year. That's something that Purdue needs to exploit. They need to win those games, and they're going to win those games if they rely on their philosophy of running the ball, handing it to Mockabee, and letting Mockabee work. That's the blueprint to success for Purdue. Run the dang ball. And then step 3, build up a defensive identity. We've talked about that here on the show. We've talked about what Purdue's trying to do, what they want to be on the defensive side of the ball. But when you think about Purdue football, you think about a strong defense, high IQ linebackers, great pass rushers. That's what you think about when you think Purdue Boilermakers. And that's what Purdue has had success in over the history of the program. They've had success in having a good defense that's able to succeed, and especially in the Big Ten nowadays, with how explosive these offenses are, with how well built and how cohesive some O-line groups are in the Big Ten. You have to have a solid defense, or else you're not going to find success, and that's something that we saw last year. And it wasn't just at one position in the defense; it was all over the place. Every group on the field was dysfunctional last year for Purdue. And that's something that needs to be fixed. And that's something that needs to be fixed, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We've seen Sanders Ellis, a Tennessee State transfer, coming in from the FCS level. And he's really come on as a leader for this defense so far. Going into scrimmage Saturday night in fall camp, he's been the leader for that defense at linebacker. He's a name to look out for. But we've also seen Barry Odom talk about rebuilding that secondary. He wants his team to be better covering the pass in the pass game. He wants his team to stand solid and really train these DBs to be able to stand step for step with these receivers and run the routes alongside the receivers. Don't get beat down the field. Cover your ground, and we'll find some success. He's vitalized he's really prioritized finding physical corners, physical safeties that are able to wrap up and get it done. It gives you a variety of different options. Purdue should have more options on the defensive side of the ball this year, but that's a key to success. Build a physical identity on the defensive side of the ball. Build a defense that will be able to succeed and be able to be competitive in Big Ten play. Competitive is the word of the season for Purdue this year. If they're able to stay competitive, it's a good year. If they're not, if they're like they were last year, then we shouldn't be in this spot. We need competitive football at Purdue. It's what the fans deserve. It's what the administration should desire to put on the field. But we haven't seen that in recent years. We need to get back to competitive football, and that starts week 1. I'm very excited. We got our guest, Roen Elbert, analyst over at Ball State University. You guys will hear from him here next. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where DripDrop comes in. DripDrop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids, quickly delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. My go-to flavor is that grape flavor. It's a game changer after a workout or even just on those busy days. Right now, DripDrop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to DripDrop.com and use promo code LockedOnCollege. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LockedOnCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. The first day of our 12 guests till kickoff starts off today here on Locked On Boilermakers, where we've got a special guest to cover that week 1 game. We got Ball State commentator and the voice of the Alpine Cowboys. We got Roen Elbert on the show today. Hey, Roen, how are you feeling?
Nick, always a great day when I can come on this show. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. So we're going to talk a little bit about that Ball State game today. We're going to talk about how Ball State's doing, kind of what that team looks like at this point in the year. So when I think about Ball State, I think about that team's faced Muncie, Indiana, right down the road from West Lafayette, and there are a lot of similarities. Ball State being in the MAC, Purdue in the Big Ten, so some differences. But when you look at the overall status of the program right now, both didn't have great years last year. Both get first year head coaches. Ball State hires Mike Uremovich this offseason, and then Purdue gets their guy in Barry Odom. Tell me a little bit about Ball State and if you see any similarities there between these two programs.
I was just about to say that, Nick. There's so many similarities between these programs. I mean, first-year head coach, like you said, Mike Uremovich, very excited about what he's bringing to the program with Ball State. They just brought him in. He was at Butler University, so another Indiana school there. We continue those Indiana ties. He was in an FCS school there, did some great things. And he comes in completely changing the culture at Ball State. And I expect the same thing with Odom over at Purdue. I think it's going to be a culture shift, and that's really going to change the trajectory of both of these programs.
Absolutely. It's crazy how many similarities there are between these two programs. Going into week one, just less than 2 weeks away now. There's Purdue's a 17-point favorite. So Vegas, our friends at FanDuel, they expect Purdue to pull a one over Ball State. Obviously, that should be the expectation for a power school to face that MAC team and then come out on top. But what do you see with Ball State? Where do you think that they'll be able to go? Do you think they're going to be able to beat a power team this year? Do you think that they're going to be able to be competitive in the MAC? Just what's your overall expectation for what Ball State's going to do this year and where they're going to be going into week one?
Well, with a lot of these MAC schools, the non-conference is going to be tough. The Cardinals have the Auburn Tigers not too long after Purdue, so it's only going to get tougher. But to face a Big Ten team week one, which, again, I don't know what to expect from Purdue, really. With a first-year head coach in Odom, I mean, a lot of new faces on that team. You don't know what to expect from Purdue, but at the same time, I guess you could say the same thing about Ball State. Also, a lot of familiar faces. I mean, Kiael Kelly at quarterback, he was the quarterback in 2023. Last season kind of took a back seat to Caden Samanza, entered the transfer portal. I thought he was going in the direction of maybe a Toledo, heading there for his final year of eligibility. But he comes back to Ball State when Uremovich comes into the system, brings him in. And I really like the move with Kelly because this is a guy, very mobile quarterback. You can use him in a lot of ways, especially just from a rushing standpoint. At Butler, Mike Uremovich's last team, their leading rusher was their quarterback. And I expect very similar things with Ball State and Kiael Kelly at quarterback. But really what I'm expecting here from this game as a whole, I think it's going to be high scoring. And it's hard to predict, but I think the Cardinals could really give Purdue a fight.
Great. Yeah. So I'm hoping Purdue's able to keep up, but you talk about that quarterback run. That's going to be pivotal for Ball State this year. Being able to have an extra guy on the field that can run the ball and increase the amount of blockers you have on the field. It's just how the math works. And that's something that Purdue's looked to stop in this offseason. Barry Odom's really brought in some guys to cement that front seven for Purdue. Can you tell me a little bit about Ball State's front seven? Obviously, Purdue has a senior running back in Devin Mockabee, Barry Odom, a very run offensive minded coach who wants to make it happen on the ground this year. What's Ball State's front seven look like, and will they be able to stop that rushing attack of Devin Mockabee?
Oh, I mean, a lot of familiar faces on that Ball State front seven. Also some new faces there as well. There are a couple of guys that I think are poised for breakouts. I mean, a guy that I'm really liking, sophomore season, Sam Feeney. Check out him. I think he's set for a big year as a sophomore on that front seven. Just as a whole, though, I mean, Purdue, if they're going to go run heavy, just if we're looking at last year, especially the Western Michigan game for Ball State, that was the game where I remember they kept running the ball, and there was not much the Cardinals could do about it. But this is a brand new team, like I've mentioned before. This is a lot of new faces, also a lot of familiar faces. It's just such a weird situation, but I think just the familiarity of a lot of returners, but also a couple new guys in there. I like what this Cardinal front seven could do.
Yeah, so we talk about Barry Odom. We talk about where this program was last year. We see Mike Uremovich has really stepped up and created a more functional football team so far in Muncie. We've seen the same with Odom. Last year, that football team was so dysfunctional. That locker room wasn't at all together towards the end of the year. Really didn't put the best product on the field. And Barry Odom has made it known that he wants that product to increase. He wants a better football team, and he wants a football team that wants to play to win and play as a team week by week. Do you feel like the hiring of that new head coach over at Ball State has increased a sense of unity on that team? Do you think that the locker room presence has kind of been better than where you guys were before? And then just going into this season, do you think that's going to improve how Ball State plays their year?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll even give you some insight here. Athletic director Jeff Mitchell, he talked about the hiring process of head coach Mike Uremovich, and he said one of the number one things he looks for is connectedness. Just, how many connections you have in the college football world. And Uremovich definitely has that. A lot of stops throughout his career, including stops over at Temple as well. So, I mean, he's been all over the place. He brought in a lot of guys that have been together in the past to get some Butler Bulldogs in there as well. But I think just like last year, you mentioned maybe dysfunctional on Purdue's end. You could say a little bit of the same with Ball State, especially towards the tail end of the year. You fire your head coach, Mike New, towards the end of the year. And then you have a lot of uncertainty with guys in the transfer portal, like will Caden Samanza stick around? Will Tanner Koziel stick around? And spoiler alert, they didn't. But at the same time, I'm expecting this season. I mean, it may take some time, but Uremovich, from all the times I've talked to him, he's really put an emphasis on building the culture and holding guys accountable too, which I really like. I like what they're building off the field with the Cardinals.
Yeah, so you talk about off the field. Let's talk about on the field. And I don't mean to hammer the coaching similarities into the ground, but it is a topic that needs to be talked about going into that week one matchup. So when you think about Barry Odom, a lot of the discourse around him is, hey, and I completely disagree because he was great at Missouri for the first 2 years, but the conversation around him is, hey, he was able to build up a team in the Mountain West. Can he do that in the Big Ten? And when you think about going from an FCS team in Butler and going up to the MAC level, there must be a similar discourse surrounding, hey, can he compete at a higher level? Is there something to that in Ball State? I think that Barry Odom is capable of building a team up in the Big Ten. But is there some similarities at the MAC level between people in the community or in the media thinking, hey, he could do this at the FCS, he can't do it at the FBS level?
Yeah, I think these Ball State fans are hungry. I will say, I think they are very hungry for success that they haven't really had as much of since 2020. When the Cardinals won the MAC, they haven't had that in a long time. So there's always going to be a bit of a pressure. And maybe they're thinking, hey, this guy's making the jump from FCS to FBS. What are we really getting? But I think the transition is going to be a lot smoother than a lot of people think. Maybe if it takes some time even, which again, there will be growing pains. That's football at the end of the day. That's college football. This is a team with a lot of new faces as well. So you'll see growing pains the first couple of weeks, especially against opponents like Purdue and Auburn. You're going to see that. But at the same time, it's you got to look at it this way. Uremovich, the culture he's building so far, it's one that's built for success, holding guys accountable and just being a family. I really like what Uremovich is building, even if it takes a few weeks. Heck, even if it takes a full season, I'm fully on board with how he'll be able to transition.
Yeah, man. And great. So we're kind of nearing the end of this segment here, but I've got one more question for you. We're going to ask everybody who comes on the show. We're doing like for each opponent on Purdue's roster, I'm going to bring in a guest from that team. So I'm going to ask each person, what's your prediction for where Ball State is going this year? I've said for Purdue, it's a big task because it's 3.5 is the win total. But I think Purdue can go 6-7, 7-6, somewhere around that range. Where do you think that Ball State will go this year? And what's kind of your record prediction for them?
If I were to predict right now, I mean, it's tough just not seeing these guys on the field quite yet. But I do think that the floor right now, it's around 4 wins. I think that's realistic. However, I could see a world where the Cardinals shock the world, and it would start with a week 1 upset victory over Purdue. You mentioned they're a 17.5-point favorite, and that's how it would really start. And if that were the case, I could see the Cardinals winning maybe 6-7 games and being bowl eligible.
I like it, Roen. Thank you again for coming on the show. We'll look to maybe have you on again towards the start of that week 1 matchup, see if we can't get this going again. Thank you, Roen, and you have a great evening.
Thank you, Nick.
Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Whether you want to get out to Ross-Ade this fall, make it out to Mackey in the wintertime, you can do that with our partners at Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. It was great having Roen on the show. And just as a reminder for you guys, all this week we have guests. On Tuesday, we got Knox Reeves covering the Southern Illinois Salukis. And then Wednesday, we got Mark Culkin and plenty of other guests to round out. This week, we got Sonny Verma coming up Friday. And I believe Tyler Wojak covering the Irish on Thursday. So we'll have all that for you guys. Keep a lookout. We're doing this all the way up until opening kickoff, where we got a guest from each program coming on the show, and we'll talk that game for you guys here on Locked On Boilermakers. And for this last segment today, I want to talk about some of the stuff that's been going on with the NCAA, because it's been absolutely insane. Just I don't know when this is going to go out, but I believe yesterday, whenever I'm filming this, they announced what's happening with Michigan, with what the punishments are for the Wolverines. Obviously, as a Purdue fan, I have some claim in this as Michigan or Big Ten counterparts. And quite frankly, I'm going to be honest, it's a massive slap on the wrist. It's a shame that that's all that Michigan gets. You go to a national championship, you go 15-0, and obviously, Michigan was elite that year. That's one of the all-time great seasons. But when you think about what happened after that, when you think about all the stories that came out, whether that's Connor Stallions, whether that's with Jim Harbaugh, just all the nonsense that goes on with that Michigan investigation, with everything that's came out after, and then to apply a punishment that does not fit the crime to an extent that Jim Harbaugh, he gets kicked out, quote unquote, for I believe 10 years until like 2036. He's in the NFL now, so it doesn't affect him. And do you think Connor Stallions is going to get a job in college football anytime soon after the black cloud that hovers over his name? Absolutely not. You punish 2 guys, you scapegoat 2 guys that were involved in the program, but Michigan has no involvement with those 2 parties anymore. So you're not even punishing the school. And I have no problem with all the money that Michigan gets fined. They deserve to get fined that and more. But when we're thinking about actual punishments that fit the crime here, and we're going to punish 2 guys that aren't even involved in the program anymore, I feel like that's unacceptable from the NCAA. We've seen years and years go by where so many schools have been punished for way worse, whether that's, Reggie Bush, him getting his Heisman taken away, for NIL, which wasn't even really on him, whether that's SMU back in the day. Obviously, completely different scenario, but they get the death penalty. They get scholarship spots taken away. They can't compete for a whole year. And then we see what happens to that program. That program is just now getting good again. We've seen how harsh the NCAA has been in past years. We've seen like what they've done to all these different programs that have committed some type of violation that doesn't even go out to the extent of what Michigan did. What Michigan did is honestly very similar to what the Astros did in 2017. And the response has been plenty of the same, where all that comes out with the Astros, what happened, they win the World Series. Michigan wins the national championship. It comes out that they cheated the whole way. And then there's no response. There was no response from Rob Manfred for that Astros team. And while there was a response from the NCAA, like I said, the punishment doesn't fit the crime. So Michigan gets to win a national championship, cheat to earn that national championship. And you know what they get to do? They get to hold it up. They get to claim it. They get to say, hey, we won this fair and square, because the NCAA said, hey, we don't care. We don't care that they cheated. And what kind of standard does that set out for other teams, for other programs that want to do similar things? So I think it's an absolute joke. I think that it's a similar situation to what happened in the MLB with the Astros, where a team wins a national champion, a team wins a World Series, and then there's no accountability taken. So it's a joke. And then another thing that I've been hearing that has been going around is playoff expansion. We talk about playoff expansion so many times a year, and I'm kind of getting tired of hearing of it. It should have been more than how it was a few years back, where it was the 4-team playoff. It should be more teams than that. We saw that the BCS system, that didn't work. The 4-team playoff didn't work. Everyone says that the 12-team playoff doesn't work, which there are definitely some flaws in the 12-team playoff. But you're talking about expanding it out, whether that's to 20 teams, whether that's to 24 teams. And I feel like that's just completely crazy. You're talking about expanding it so that teams, we're looking at, if you bring it out to 24 teams, 26 teams, I don't even know what the number is that they're looking at anymore. That's an 8-4 team that can get in. 9-3, a bad 9-3 team gets in to a 20+ team playoff, and a good 8-4 team makes it in to that kind of playoff. And that's honestly so unacceptable. You're just letting the whole AP top 25 in the playoff, and it removes all meaning from pivotal games within the season. When you think about some of these big games that happen in the Big Ten, those games are important because there are playoff implications on those games. When you make it so that a team can lose 4 games on a year and still make it in the playoffs, then the regular season just doesn't matter at all. And we saw that in the NBA. We see how when you have all those games, when the playoffs really don't matter for some of the better teams, then you get load management. You get guys sitting out. You get guys not really caring until the playoffs. We've seen that in all these other sporting events. College football is unique because it has a lack of playoff teams. It's hard to get into the playoffs. The way it used to be is, shoot, you lose more than one game, your season's done. There's nothing to look forward to. College football dream is dead if you lose more than one game. And now we're looking at a path where it could potentially open up for 4 lost teams to be in the playoff. And that's absolutely absurd. The NCAA needs to put a stop in it. I feel like there's a middle ground that you can kind of search for, where maybe not 12, maybe not 20, but whether that's a 16, whether that's going down to 8. I mean, I'm not the playoff expert. I don't know what's going to do best. Ultimately, it all comes down to what makes the NCAA the most money. At the end of the day, every decision that the NCAA makes is thinking about their pockets and what makes them look the best. And that's how it's always been. That's how it will always ever be. But when you think about from a fan perspective, from a program perspective, what is ideal? It may not be 12 games, but I can tell you right now, it sure isn't 20. Shoot, Purdue may get into the playoff with that many games. We'll see. I'm hoping Purdue pulls out a bowl game, and we'll be previewing all of the games on Purdue's schedule these next coming weeks, all the way up until kickoff. We'll have a new guest on every day for you guys because we are daily on Locked On Boilermakers. That's a unique thing that I offer, that we offer, and we're getting better every day. So make sure that you guys subscribe. We're trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers by the time we kick off against Ball State. Lofty goal, but I know you guys can do it. Thank you guys again for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Brian Smith on the Portal Show. He's got the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. So be the most informed fan on the rapid changes coming to the college football landscape. Find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you guys again for joining us today. Thank you, Roen, for coming on the show. And as always, boiler up, hammer down.